It's August the 9th, 2021, and our reading from 1 Kings today is in chapter 6. In the 480th year after the Israelites had come out of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, the 2nd month, he began to build the temple of the Lord. The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 wide, and 30 high. The portico at the front of the main hall of the temple extended the width of the temple, that is 20 cubits, and projected 10 cubits from the front of the temple. He made narrow clerestory windows in the temple. Against the walls of the main hall and inner sanctuary, he built a structure around the building in which there were side rooms. The lowest floor was 5 cubits wide, the middle floor 6 cubits, and the third floor 7. He made offset ledges around the outside of the temple so that nothing would be inserted into the temple walls. In building the temple, only blocks dressed at the quarry were used, and no hammer, chisel, or any other iron tool was hewed at the temple site while it was being built. The entrance to the lowest floor was on the south side of the temple. A stairway led up to the middle level and from there to the third. So he built the temple and completed it, roofing it with beams and cedar planks. He built the side rooms all along the temple. The height of each was 5 cubits, and they were attached to the temple by beams of cedar. The word of the Lord came to Solomon, "As for this temple you are building, if you follow my decrees and carry out my regulations and keep all my commands and obey them, I will fulfill through you the promise I gave to David your father. And I will live among the Israelites and will not abandon my people Israel." So Solomon built the temple and completed it. He lined its interior walls with cedar boards, paneling them from the floor of the temple to the ceiling, and covered the floor of the temple with planks of pine. He partitioned off 20 cubits at the rear of the temple with cedar boards from floor to ceiling to form within the temple an inner sanctuary, the most holy place. The main hall in front of this room was 40 cubits long. The inside of the temple was cedar, carved with gourds and open flowers. Everything was cedar. No stone was to be seen. He prepared the inner sanctuary within the temple to set the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord there. The inner sanctuary was 20 cubits long, 20 wide, and 20 high. He overlaid the inside with pure gold, and he also overlaid the altar of cedar. Solomon covered the inside of the temple with pure gold, and he extended gold chains across the front of the inner sanctuary, which was overlaid with gold. So he overlaid the whole interior with gold. He also overlaid with gold the altar that belonged to the inner sanctuary. In the inner sanctuary, he made a pair of cherubim of olive wood, each 10 cubits high. One wing of the first cherub was 5 cubits long, and the other wing 5 cubits, 10 cubits from wingtip to wingtip. The second cherub also measured 10 cubits, for the 2 cherubim were identical in size and shape. The height of each cherubim was 10 cubits. He placed the cherubim inside the innermost room of the temple with their wings spread out. The wing of one cherub touched one wall, while the wing of the other touched the other wall, and their wings touched each other in the middle of the room. He overlaid the cherubim with gold. On the walls all round the temple, in both the inner and outer rooms, he carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers. He also covered the floors of both the inner and outer rooms of the temple with gold. For the entrance of the inner sanctuary, he made doors of olive wood with 5-sided jambs. And on the 2 olive wood doors, he carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, and overlaid the cherubim and palm trees with beaten gold. In the same way, he made 4-sided jambs of olive wood for the entrance to the main hall. He also made 2 pine doors, each having 2 leaves that turned in sockets. He carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers on them and overlaid them with gold, hammered evenly over the carvings. And he built the inner courtyard of 3 courses of dressed stone and 1 course of trimmed cedar beams. The foundation of the temple of the Lord was laid in the 4th year, in the month of Ziv, in the 11th year, in the month of Bul, the 8th month, the temple was finished in all its details, according to its specifications. He had spent 7 years building it. Amen. Now in verses 1 to 13, we have a very precise date. We can date this event very precisely from verse 1. And we have very precise details about the building of the temple, all the different elements, bits and pieces, how long they were, how thick they were, how tall they were, and so on. And we have a very wonderful promise or set of promises in verses 11 to 13. The word of the Lord came to Solomon, and I think the crowning glory of it all, which explains the purpose of the whole project of the temple. Verse 13, and I will live among the Israelites and will not abandon my people Israel. Then in the second half of the chapter, verses 14 to 38, we are told, verse 14, so Solomon built the temple and completed it. He's completed the project. And how long did it take him? We're told in verse 38, it took him 7 years. 7 years. And this thing, this building at the heart of the life of Israel is so important. It's so glorious. I think that's one of the reasons we are given one fascinating detail after another to ponder on. The detail about the cherubim, the detail about the carvings, the detail about the whole structure, the foundation, the walls, the entrance, the portico. Because every detail has significance and is to be pondered on and wondered at and pored over. And nowhere is this more so than concerning the very heart of the building, the Holy of Holies. In verses 20 to 22, it's described there as the inner sanctuary. Did you notice? It was a perfectly cubed room, verse 20, and it was a completely golden room, as we are told. The most special space on planet Earth at this time. Why? Because in the heart of it will be set the Ark of the Covenant, verse 19. That Ark, which was the throne from which God would reign over his people, in this room, which would be the dwelling place of God amongst his people. So much detail. That again is like the crowning glory of it. Great detail, glorious detail. But when we think of verse 13, and we think of the Holy of Holies in the temple, let me read verse 13 again. And I will live among the Israelites and will not abandon my people Israel. God will be with them. God will keep his promises, protecting, providing, leading them, guiding them. And it will all flow from the Ark of the Covenant, from his house, from his throne. God himself will be amongst them. This was real, but it was also a symbol, a promise, a pattern, a picture of something even greater, even more glorious to come. I live among the Israelites. I'll not abandon my people Israel. The obvious fulfillment of that in the New Testament is John 1, verse 14. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth.